The leaders we've had from 1966 to date are puppet leaders.
Can you imagine that Africa faces problems not only from the outside, but also from within? Some African leaders don't always prioritize their country's well-being. Instead, they seem influenced by Western powers. Kenya's President William Ruto and CIA Director William J. Burns met recently, raising questions about its purpose. In the modern world, secrets don't stay hidden for long, and eventually the true reason for their meeting comes out. However, due to efforts from the West to keep it under wraps, only a few people know why they met. Was it to give the US more control over Kenya? Let's find out. In a groundbreaking meeting at Nairobi State House on January 15, 2024, President William Ruto of Kenya and CIA Director William J. Burns engaged in a meeting that could reshape the global stage. This isn't your typical diplomatic meetup. It's a diplomatic trick that can impact many African nations. Let's cut to the chase. Kenya's rising. And this meeting shouts, "We're players in the international game." President Ruto isn't just sitting still. He's making moves that put Kenya in the spotlight. But while this action might look something for the benefit of African nations, it is not for their benefit. There are other reasons why this meeting was done, which will shock you. But before that, let's touch on the positive side and the side everyone discusses. Let's start with the Western perspective on this matter. About Director Burns, forget the spy movie stereotypes. He's not here for covert ops. He's here for a chat, maybe a cup of Kenyan tea. It's all about dialogue, not secret missions. This meeting screams transparency and openness. In our connected world, what happens in Kenya affects us all. They're not just talking about local issues, but diving into global challenges like terrorism and cyber threats. It's a 21st century power move. Why Kenya, you ask? Well, why not? Kenya's hustling, bustling, and booming. It's a tech and economic hub. Kenya faces issues today, but still stands like a force against all the challenges. So, a meeting in Nairobi isn't just talk, it's progress. A blueprint for others to follow.
Registration and verification systems. All of these things reflect a degree of democratic progress.
And the date, January 15, 2024, isn't random. It's a marker for change, setting the tone for the year. Leaders are making moves early on. Choosing this day for a powwow speaks volumes about the importance of their discussions. But let's be real, we're not getting the inside scoop. What went down behind those State House doors is hush-hush. Still, the fact that these leaders from different corners sat down to chat screams understanding, collaboration, and finding common ground. People might ask, why is Kenya cozying up to the CIA? But according to the West, it's not puppetry, it's partnerships. Nations working together, sharing ideas, and finding solutions. In a divided world, this meeting says, we may differ, but we'll bridge the gap. It's a call for unity in facing challenges that cross borders. Many Western channels say this isn't just about Kenya or the US, it's about a global village. Leaders from different zip codes are coming together, breaking barriers and saying, every thread in this international tapestry matters. Here's to Ruto and Burns for the diplomatic step, the dialogue, and showing the world that in this global game, every action counts. But what were the main topics of discussion during the meeting? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. In a meeting at Nairobi State House on January 15, 2024, President William Ruto of Kenya and CIA Director William J. Burns set the stage for a unified front against global security concerns. Their mission? To tackle head-on the pressing issues of terrorism and political instability plaguing the Horn of Africa and the Middle East regions. At least, this is what they told the world. Cutting through the diplomatic jargon, the meeting dealt with real-world problems. Kenya and the United States joined forces, acknowledging the persistent conflicts in these regions and committing to finding solutions. So, what's the deal with the Horn of Africa and the Middle East? They're hotspots for trouble. Terrorism and political instability is like unwanted house guests overstaying their welcome. Kenya and the US aren't turning a blind eye. They're saying, enough is enough. The meeting wasn't just a photo scene, it was a symbol of shared commitment. Both nations declared, we're in this together. It's like two neighbors teaming up to tackle a common backyard problem. Terrorism and political instability know no borders, and neither does the dedication of Kenya and the US. Let's break it down further. Kenya isn't just talking about its security, it's zooming out globally. It's saying, we care about what happens beyond our borders. We care about the Horn of Africa and the Middle East because it affects all of us. And the US, well, they've got their challenges, but they're not looking the other way. They say, we're here to roll up our sleeves and work together. And for the US, Kenya does matter a lot, as what Biden has to say can be hard.
Partnership is essential. We both, I think, believe is essential to addressing key regional and global challenges. And I want to thank thank you for your leadership in defending the peace, security, and democratic instincts of the region and your country.
The meeting wasn't about pointing fingers or playing the blame game. It was about finding common ground. Both nations acknowledged that the security landscape is complex. It's not a problem you can solve with a quick fix, but the fact that they're sitting at the same table, hashing out plans, shows a commitment to untangling the mess. According to the West, this meeting was a beacon of hope, but the reality might differ slightly. It's a message to those living in the Horn of Africa and the Middle East. You're not alone. Kenya and the US are standing shoulder to shoulder, ready to address the challenges and bring about change. Why was it particularly Kenya? Is Kenya becoming West's puppet? Why is Kenya considered a strategic partner for the US in the East African region? President William Ruto of Kenya and CIA Director William J. Burns discussed global security concerns in the meeting. They highlighted Kenya's strategic importance as a key ally for the United States in East Africa. Let's break it down. Kenya isn't just any player in the East African arena. It's a star player, a cornerstone for the US in the region. The meeting spotlighted Kenya's pivotal role as a major partner in addressing security matters, making it clear that this collaboration is more than just a casual partnership. It's a strategic alliance. Why is Kenya so crucial for the United States? Well, for starters, it's a reliable teammate in the game of regional security. Kenya and the US aren't just exchanging pleasantries, they're rolling up their sleeves to tackle shared challenges effectively. Regarding dealing with security matters in East Africa, Kenya is the go-to ally for the United States.
Against climate change. So our nations share a deep commitment to fairness and to respect and equity, and I'm committed to further elevating our ties with Kenya and nations across Africa as a whole. But Kenya is key.
The diplomatic ties between Kenya and the US aren't just symbolic. They carry weight. They signify more than just polite handshakes and official meetings. These ties scream, Kenya matters. The collaboration between the two nations isn't a one-off. It's a continuous effort, a commitment to addressing regional security challenges. Kenya isn't just a passive participant in this alliance. It's actively contributing to regional stability and security. The meeting wasn't just a pat on the back for Kenya's efforts, but a recognition of its significant role in the complex East African security. Amidst the ongoing international engagement between Kenya and the United States, questions arise about the Western world's keen interest in Kenya, particularly fueled by the close relationship between President William Ruto and Western officials. Why is Kenya a focal point for Western nations? Kenya holds strategic importance for Western nations, particularly the United States, due to its geographical location, stable political climate, and role as a regional economic hub in East Africa. President Ruto's close ties with Western officials may have fostered diplomatic relations, making Kenya a key ally in addressing regional security concerns and other shared challenges. But what makes Kenya the priority of all Western officials? In recent times, there have been notable incidents suggesting that President Ruto of Kenya has been favorably inclined towards Western interests, offering certain advantages that may not necessarily align with the preferences of the local population. This has sparked a range of sentiments among the public, creating a complex dynamic between the political leadership and the people of Kenya. The perception that President Ruto consistently garners favor from Western officials raises questions about the nature and implications of this relationship. prompting a closer examination of the motivations behind Western support for the Kenyan president. To fully comprehend the implications of President Ruto's alignment with Western interests, it is crucial to consider the historical context of Africa's relationship with the West. Suspicion arises naturally, given the history of exploitation and the geopolitical significance of the continent. The colonial legacy has left a lasting impact on Africa, and any perceived alignment with Western powers raises concerns about the motives behind such relationships. Against the background of Africa's geopolitical significance, particularly in the face of increasing global competition, suspicions about Western motives become more pronounced. For example, the meeting between President Ruto and the CIA has fueled speculation about potential plans or strategies. This has led to questions about whether the United States aims to exert control in Africa, especially as China and Russia expand their influence. The notion that the U.S. is attempting to regain influence in Africa to counterbalance the growing presence of China and Russia is a valid concern. Geopolitical competition in the region has intensified, with African nations at the center of global power struggles. Understanding the strategic objectives of the United States in its engagement with Kenya is crucial to gaining insights into the broader geopolitical dynamics at play. President Ruto's favorable stance towards Western interests has undoubtedly attracted support from Western officials. However, the nature of this support raises questions about the extent to which it influences Kenyan policies and decision-making. It is not uncommon for leaders to establish strong ties with Western powers, but the potential implications of such favoritism warrant thorough examination. The relations between President Ruto and the local population highlight the importance of considering public sentiments. Local opinions about the alignment with Western interests may vary, adding a layer of complexity to Kenya's political landscape. As leaders steer through the complexities of international relations, they must also address the concerns and preferences of their constituents to maintain domestic stability. For President Ruto, balancing the interests of Western allies with the expectations of the Kenyan people is undoubtedly a delicate task. The favoritism towards Western powers may yield benefits regarding economic support, diplomatic relations, and international standing. However, it also risks alienating sections of the local population who may view such alignment with skepticism. One of the critical concerns arising from President Ruto's alignment with Western interests is the potential impact on Kenyan sovereignty. As the nation engages in diplomatic relations and international collaborations, it must ensure that its decisions serve the country's best interests without compromising its autonomy. Striking a balance between global partnerships and safeguarding national sovereignty is a challenge that requires astute leadership. But according to many, he is just a Western puppet they use occasionally. So, expecting that he is protecting the nation's security is not possible for the locals. Economic considerations often play a significant role in shaping international relationships. President Ruto's alignment with Western interests may be driven, in part, by the economic advantages that come with such alliances. Economic aid, trade partnerships, and foreign investments can contribute to the country's development, but the long-term consequences and dependencies must be carefully evaluated. And using this as an excuse to let the West take control is something the locals won't bear. The broader implications of President Ruto's alignment with Western interests extend beyond Kenya's borders. As Africa becomes a battleground for geopolitical influence, the decisions and alliances made by individual nations can impact the continent as a whole. Cooperation or friction between Western powers, China and Russia in Africa may shape a regional development and stability. But is it possible for some African leaders to be Western puppets? The discourse surrounding African leadership and its implications on the continent's development has started debates and controversies over the years. A prevailing narrative suggests that some African leaders are mere puppets of Western powers, ultimately contributing to Africa's downfall. To understand the dynamics at play, one must delve into Africa's history, marked by the dark shadows of colonization, exploitation, and the imposition of Western ideologies. The scars of colonialism have indelibly shaped the continent's political, economic, and social structures. Post-independence African nations grappled with establishing stable governments and institutions after colonial rule, setting the stage for a complex and intricate narrative. The claim that certain African leaders act as puppets for Western powers often revolves around their political alignments and foreign policy decisions. Experts argue that some leaders prioritize Western interests over the needs of their people, citing economic dependencies, foreign aid, and strategic partnerships as compromising factors. They value personal interests more than public interests. Economic disparities within Africa play a significant role in fueling allegations of puppetry. Some leaders stand accused of facilitating the exploitation of their country's natural resources by foreign corporations, resulting in profound economic imbalances. The prevalence of corruption and the lack of transparency in governance exacerbate these issues, prompting questions about the true beneficiaries of economic activities in the region. Acknowledging external influences is crucial, but it is equally important to recognize the agency of African leaders and internal factors contributing to the continent's challenges. Corruption, poor governance, and internal conflicts cannot be solely attributed to external pressures. But why do they value personal gains over public interests? The issue of African leaders prioritizing personal gains over public interests is a persistent challenge that demands careful examination. President Uhuru Kenyatta's leadership has prioritized personal interests in Kenya, raising important questions about the dynamics at play within the region's political landscape. To understand the motivations behind such actions, it is essential to consider the historical context that has shaped Kenya's political landscape. The country gained independence from British colonial rule in 1963, embarking on a journey to establish a stable and prosperous nation. However, over the years, Kenya has faced challenges related to corruption, political patronage, and a struggle for resources, which have influenced the priorities of its leaders. One of the key factors contributing to the perception of personal gain over public welfare is the prevalence of corruption within Kenya's political sphere. Corruption erodes public trust, diverts resources from essential services, and hinders economic development. Reports of embezzlement, bribery, and kickbacks have fueled concerns that some leaders, including President Kenyatta, prioritize personal enrichment over the well-being of the Kenyan people. Nepotism also plays a role, with accusations that political appointments and favors are often granted based on personal relationships rather than merit. This further exacerbates the perception that leaders prioritize personal interests and loyalty over the public good. Some African leaders, including those in Kenya, have been accused of prioritizing their economic interests and those of their inner circles over broader national development. Allegations of leaders amassing wealth through questionable means, such as land deals and business ventures, contribute to the perception that personal gain takes precedence over addressing the economic needs of the population. Elitism within political circles further widens the gap between leaders and the general public. Decisions that benefit a select few, often associated with the political elite, reinforce the perception that leaders are more concerned with catering to their inner circle's interests than addressing the country's broader socio-economic challenges. Sometimes leaders prioritize personal gains as a strategy for politics and power consolidation. Leaders can strengthen their hold on power by securing economic interests and cultivating a network of loyal supporters. This approach, however, often comes at the expense of broader public welfare, as resources and opportunities may be disproportionately distributed to maintain political allegiances. A crucial element in understanding why some African leaders prioritize personal gains is the lack of accountability and transparency in governance, weak institutional frameworks, limited checks and balances, and insufficient mechanisms for holding leaders accountable create an environment where personal interests can take precedence without facing significant repercussions. How would people react to this? The politics of Kenya is shifting as revelations about President Ruto's alignment with Western interests come to light. The exposure of these actions has started a wave of discontent among the Kenyan population, leading to speculation that the president may face a rebellion that could force him to relinquish his position. As Africans increasingly stand up for themselves, the perception of being a Western puppet, particularly in resource-rich nations, becomes an unbearable burden for leaders. The veil of secretiveness surrounding President Ruto's dealings with Western powers has been lifted, thanks to increased public awareness. Kenyan citizens are becoming more informed about the actions of their political leaders, sparking a collective sense of dissatisfaction with what is perceived as an alignment with foreign interests over the needs of the local population. This growing awareness is an example of the changing governance dynamics in Kenya, with citizens demanding transparency and accountability. The revelation of President Ruto's alignment with Western interests has sown the seeds of discontent, creating a fertile ground for rebellion. Tired of being perceived as pawns in global power plays, Africans are increasingly unwilling to tolerate leaders who prioritize external alliances at the expense of national interests. The potential for a rebellion against President Ruto signifies a shift in public sentiment, with citizens no longer passive observers, but active participants in shaping the course of their nation. The characterization of African leaders as Western puppets, particularly in resource-rich nations, has long been a source of resentment among the continent's population. As awareness grows, citizens express dissatisfaction with leaders who appear subservient to foreign interests. The call for self-determination and resistance against external influence resonates strongly, and leaders perceived as compromising national sovereignty face the risk of widespread public opposition. The alignment of leaders with Western interests in resource-rich nations amplifies the stakes. The exploitation of Africa's abundant natural resources has been a historical challenge, and citizens are increasingly vocal about reclaiming control over their country's wealth. President Ruto's perceived collaboration with Western powers in a resource-rich context further intensifies the discontent, with the public demanding leaders who prioritize local development and equitable resource distribution. Do you think the meeting was a plan to let the U.S. take more control over Africa? Why are African leaders doing it? Let us know in the comments section if the people of Africa will ever forgive them. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.